Well, if there's any indication that world turmoil is going to happen, it's because I got injured, okay? Because why is it that every single time I get injured, something big happens in the world? I sprained my ankle and the next day, Maduro was in chains. And this time I recovered, I tore my rotator cuff so incredibly bad that I couldn't move out of my bed for 10 days. And since then, we've gone into Iran and Cuba has gone to shit. Cuba is falling apart. And today, while I'm not going to be talking about Iran just yet because I want to collect all of my thoughts, we are going to talk about Cuba and this weird idea that Cuban Americans have now of annexing Cuba or having it become a territory of the United States. And mi amores, that is not a good idea. And wait, before you tell me that I'm a communist, because I already hear it. Esto es Mari sin censura. Vamos para allá. Okay, I'm just going to come out and say it. For the past couple of weeks, I have seen everywhere on my Instagram feed, people messaging me. I've seen it on X. I've seen Cuban American influencers talk about it. And that is this idea that is floating around that Cuba should become a territory, much like Puerto Rico, or annexed into the 51st state of America. And I am here to tell you how absurd that is. And before you call me a comunista, let me explain. And this is going to be a very quick explanation for this channel because, not because I think it should be expanded on, because it definitely should be, but because I am still in a lot of pain, you guys. Look at this. I cannot move my shoulder very much at all. I'm still taking pain medication, and even sitting here is very painful. And so that's the reason why I haven't uploaded anything in the last 2 weeks, transparently, is because even, I can move my arm back and forth, but even putting it on the table is very, very, very painful for me. So I can do a little bit of editing, so I want to do this pretty quick. So let's get into it. Why do I think that this is a little bit ridiculous? I think it's a little bit ridiculous for multiple reasons. And the first being is that I don't think Cuban Americans really understand what it would take for Cuba to become a territory or the annexation process. First of all, let's even take annexation away because I don't even think it's feasible. We need Congress to approve the annexation of Cuba. So automatically, it would have to be a territory before it could even be a part of the United States. Like, that's not even a feasible option. So territory, let's talk about it being a territory, Cuba becoming a territory. I don't think Cuban Americans even realize what it means for that to happen. We are talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars to support Cuba and its transition into not only a territory, but a stable territory at that. Right now, the reason that Trump was able to coalesce a bigger coalition, the reason why he was able to get more Latinos, the reason why he was able to get more independents, the reason why he won all the swing states is because he expanded his coalition. He expanded his big tent. And really, what was underneath the surface, the belly of that greater project to get everybody in, was this idea that America should be first. Make America great again. And the sentiment was that everybody had in common, even people that, seemingly would never vote for Trump before, that now did vote for Trump, was this idea that, okay, we spend way too much money overseas, getting in all these foreign entanglements. We need to think about America first and then Americans first. And that's what really won over the American psyche, is this idea that we have to make America first. If we put ourselves in that mindset, if we put ourselves in the American mindset, why would Johnny and Kylie from Ohio support a territory expansion of the United States that would take billions and billions and billions of dollars to another country, another culture that was not theirs? Is that it's not possible. I don't think it's possible to convince the American people that we have to go into Cuba to save the Cuban people and waste billions of our taxpayer dollars doing that. Now, maybe you're thinking, oh, but what about the private people, private parties that can invest in Cuba? Yeah, but there still needs to be the infrastructure. There needs to be roads that need to be completely redone and maintained. The schools that need to be completely rebuilt. The government buildings that need to be completely rebuilt. We're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars. And who are we at the end of the day? Who are we, the Cuban American diaspora, the Cuban exile community even? Who are we to ask and demand that of the American people? Who are we to ask that? That is really, think about it. Who are we to ask fulana de tal that don't even know where Cuba is on the map, that think that Cubans eat tortillas? Let's be real. They think we're fucking Mexicans. Who are we to ask them for millions and billions of their taxpayer money? Now, we're not even talking about, and that's just talking about the infrastructure and the economy. We're not even talking about the Cuban people. Because at the end of the day, the Cuban people also have to put their stake in this too. I do. I really do believe that. I believe that inside of Cuba today, there needs to be some sort of demonstration that they are craving this, that they want this. So Cubans have to sort of put their part into this too. And I'm not saying that Cubans have to do it now, of course, because they don't have arms. Let's be real. I have to be real about that expectation as well. Cubans do not have guns. Cubans do not have any way to self-protect themselves. But there needs to be, like, if there is some sort of U.S. intervention, whether that be economic or military, there needs to be some sort of Cubans have a stake in this as well. Cubans on the island show that they have stake in this as well. Which leads me to another thing. It's been 67 years. 67 years of socialism. And socialism has created 67 years. We're talking about 3 generations of people who are dependent. Let's be real. Many Cubans on the island, no, it's not everybody, but many Cubans on the island are dependent for the government to provide them things, for their families on the outside to provide them things. And there's been this culture of, okay, well, if I have family on the outside, I can just ask them for $20 here and ask them for $100 there because of the system, because of the poverty, and because of the lack of opportunities that there are in Cuba. Cuba is an economic dictatorship, right? There's not that many opportunities. So it's created this culture of dependency. Now, what else do you think that means in a culture of dependency if Cuba was to become a territory? It means that in that transition period, for I would assume at least a decade, we're talking about at least 10 years, we would have a significant population of Cubans on welfare, dependent on the government to get them by. Now, we see this already in a lot of other territories we are in. In Puerto Rico, 47% of Puerto Ricans are on welfare. 47%. Imagínate Cuba. Imagine Cuba. Cuba that doesn't have the infrastructure yet to create those private businesses. A population that doesn't have the capital to do so. Right? They don't have the capital to do so. So they're automatically a large population of Cuba. Again, not everybody is going to be dependent on the states. And we're talking about a significant chunk of the population in my best estimates. Do you still think that Johnny and Kylie in Iowa still want to foot that bill? It's hard. I think what happens in the Cuban American community is that a lot of them live in Miami and they're in this echo chamber and this bubble of how can we liberate Cuba? And out of the desperation that we all have this desperation, right? We all have this desperation to see Cuba free. There comes these ideas that don't take in mind the American people. At the end of the day, this idea does not take in mind the American people. It doesn't take them in mind at all. It's going to take billions of dollars to get Cuba in some sort of state where Cubans can start getting the necessary capital to create their own private businesses, to compete with American investors who do have the capital. It's going to take decades for that. And in the meantime, we are going to extend the life shelf of state dependency. Instead of communism this time, it will be welfare programs by the United States, by Americans. And I don't think Cuban Americans have really thought about this, like really thought what they are asking the American people. So that's why I have always said, we need, for me, a solution, because probably you're now listening to me like, Mari, what's the solution then? What's the solution? Well, the solution, mi amores, is, in my mind, is to create an environment where we can find somebody that isn't part of the the Castro echelon, that comes in there and can be strong-armed by the Americans to say, no, we are going to open this up not only economically, but also politically as well. We're going to create multi-parties so people can vote. We're going to create a new constitution. We're going to revise the constitution so that people can have different ideas, that they can elect their own Congress representatives. We're going to have elections, and we're going to transition from communism, this dictatorship that they have, right, to a more democratic capitalist country. So we need somebody in the transition period, much like what Trump did in Venezuela with Delcy Rodriguez, much like that. Now we need the U.S. to help us to find that transition and strong arm that person into democracy, right? So that Cubans can self-determine what their government should look like. So Cubans can participate in their own rebuilding of the country. And that includes Cuban Americans as well. That includes the exiles as well. But that Cubans feel feel they have some sort of stake in the game, some sort of skin in the game. It's not stake in the game, it's skin in the game. So they feel a part of the renewed and revitalized Cuba. But this idea to ask them to become a territory, mi amor, it's absolutely, to me, as thinking in my American part of my brain, I just think it's extremely absurd to ask that of the American people. I really do. And that's my opinion. And I know that it's going to cause a lot of turmoil in the comments. And, I am thinking like people are going to call me a communist, because if I don't agree 100%, then I'm a communist. I'm an agent of the state, whatever. I just think the best road for Cuba's liberation is that Cubans on the island take control and self-determine that on their own with the help of the United States, not for it to become a territory. Y nada. At the end of the day, I'm not in Marco Rubio's team. I'm not part of the government at all. Contrary to the leftists, I'm not paid by the CIA at all. Otherwise, I would have a way better setup and I would get a maid to help me clean while I'm injured. And I'm not part of anything. At the end of the day, I just talk a lot of mierda online. I just talk a lot of shit online, and I say what my opinions are sin censura. But at the end of the day, I can't do much about it. You know that there is nothing more in my life than I would want to see the liberation of Cuba. But I would like to see long-term change in Cuba, and that starts with Cubans themselves, not Americans. Nada. Patria y vida. Y que viva Cuba libre. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And please subscribe. Can you please help me subscribe? Help me subscribe so that, one day I can get on a podcast with Tim Pool. Oh, that's otra cosa. While that you guys are zoning me out. Otra cosa. Tim Pool did a whole episode on Cuba. And I was like, wow, they actually did it. Let's hear what these people have to say. Not one person was Cuban American, and they still thought Raul Castro was the president. You guys, help me get on these podcasts, because we need a little bit of representation. You know what I mean? Cojones!